What's going on, ladies and gents? This is Bento with another Steam controller playtest, and this time I'm going to be trying it out on Shadow Warrior. Shadow Warrior is really fun. It's one of those throwbacks to old school FPS games where you pretty much just have to kill everything in sight and then move on to the next level. But the fun thing about Shadow Warrior is that you pretty much use a katana the entire time. And so I thought it'd be cool to try the Steam controller on a more melee-focused FPS game. So for my actual control scheme, I am actually using a gamepad and keyboard hybrid setup, and I'm just happy that Shadow Warrior actually lets you use that this time. I like the gamepad buttons because there are some functionalities that operate more than once, and I'll explain that when I go over my control scheme. In terms of how it's the layout, it is pretty similar to how you'd see it on, or how you'd see Shadow Warrior on the normal gamepad, although there obviously are a lot of alterations. So for the actual controller, I have the left trigger as a dual trigger function. The soft pull action is to aim whenever you have guns. The hard pull action is to use the secondary function. So in this case, it's fanning the hammer on the revolver. And if you have a katana, it's using your heavy swings. The right trigger is just for light swings and as well as shooting with your normal guns. The right bumper is to reload, but it is mapped to the X button, so it's also used to reload, to use, and I think it's just those two for now. But I like it there just because you can reload and you don't have to press the X button or A button to interact, so you can still use your camera while doing that. The left bumper is just to use your secondary attack, so in this case when you have a gun it's your melee, and when you have the katana it's your shuriken. The left trackpad I have set to a touch menu so I can access all my weapons, and as you can see I do have icons for each of them. And if you do come across all the other weapons, you can always just update them for maybe a shotgun, I think there was. Can't really remember. The right trackpad is just my normal camera movement. It is a mouse style of input with trackball motion. And I am using motion control as well, which is tied to the right trackpad. If I were to click the right trackpad, it'll actually be to jump. And a double tap actually activates your flashlight. For my left thumbstick, I am just using a regular joystick movement. If I were to tap it, it would be the objective menu or the objective indicator. The face buttons are sort of typical. The Y button is to switch to your most previous, or is to use the previously used weapon. The B button is just to use your secondary attacks again. A button is to jump. And the X button is to reload. Same thing with the right bumper, reload, use, and all of that. For the left grip, I have the crouch button, and for the right grip, I have the dodge button. I usually have my right grip on jump, but since I feel like Shadow Warrior uses the dodge mechanic more, I decided to just use it with the right grip. And if you were to hold it down, you go into sprint. The select button, The select button I just have as the inventory, so you can access your skills, your karma, and your powers, as well as your weapons. And the start menu is just your pause menu to go into whatever you need to do. So that's pretty much it. Let's show you guys some actual gameplay. So the gameplay I'm showing you guys is just me going about one particular chapter where I have to kill a whole bunch of demons and open up gates. I'll primarily be using the katana most of the time. I'll use a couple guns here and there, but mostly you'll just see a whole bunch of sword killing. So Shadow Warrior is very fast paced in the sense that you have to kill a whole bunch of enemies within a small area, and the gameplay with the Steam controller feels extremely smooth. Using the katana felt fine, using the guns felt fine, kinda typical of how I played with my other FPS games. I did have some trouble adjusting to using the powers in Shadow Warrior. If any of you guys aren't familiar with the power usage, you essentially have to double tap your movement in a certain direction and then hit the left or right click, and then you'll be able to activate certain powers like healing, you'll do a really quick stab, or you'll send out a wave that'll slice through enemies, which I'm actually about to do here right now. So it felt weird because double tapping in the direction using the left joystick felt a little hard to do at first. It's much easier in the keyboard because it's really easy to tap a single key, but for the left thumbstick you kind of have to adjust. So initially it felt weird, but eventually you get used to it, and it really helps because to be able to use your powers and kill enemies on the fly is very important. I think it's a similar issue on consoles as well, but it's not that big of a deal though. Normally on the regular gamepad, your dodge mechanic is on your right bumper. I really like having it for right grip because I'm able to actually dodge and swing my sword at the same time. I mean, you can still do it, but it saves having to move your finger around too much between the right trigger and the right bumper. So I just really like this because I can dodge and just hit enemies whenever I need to.
Did I break your concentration?
I did find myself not really using the crouch key too much, and that's primarily just because I'm moving and shooting a lot more. So instead of setting it to the left grip, which I usually do in most of my FPS games, I think what I could have done was instead put jump or dodge on any of the grips, and that way I can just use them a lot faster. That would also free up my right trackpad click, and maybe I could have used that for interact or something else. I decided not to use sprint or dodge on the left thumbstick this time because it felt a little weird having to dodge just by clicking the thumbstick. It definitely felt more comfortable if you have it on your right grip or even the right bumper if you want to keep the controls as normal. I thought motion control was very helpful this game, most obviously with the guns or if you need to aim. It actually did help me a bit using with the sword gameplay. I thought it really helped with switching between targets that were really close, but where I thought it was most helpful was when you need to send out the shockwave slice, so that way you can just properly aim. As for the camera on the right trackpad, the mouse style of input really helps with moving your camera as fast as you need to, especially when you need to do a 180-degree turn just to get enemies behind you. I think it's helped me quite a bit because sometimes they usually just appear right behind you and they're pouncing at you. And so it's helped me in a number of situations where I needed to kill the guys behind me so I can get out of a really big crowd. If you guys do decide to use my control scheme, the left trigger with the dual trigger function might be something you kind of have to get used to. Again, it's just this issue of making sure you appropriately apply the right pressure for the left trigger.
Wow! That was nice!
I think the gamepad and keyboard setup really helps to make the game a little more accessible. What I think is really helpful is the fact that normally on the gamepad the X button is both your reload and use. And so I really like that I can keep that on my right bumper and I can just reload and interact without having to take my thumb off the camera movement. You could also do it with the normal keyboard if you just toggle the multi-button function. It really works, but it might not be helpful for some games where the other function might actually interfere with the normally set function.
So, the Shadow Realm, is that hell?
No more than this place is. It's just different.
But it's full of demons.
Yes, but this place is full of humans.
If any of you guys have ever played Halo 3, that's actually where I got my idea for putting the reload on the right bumper. I thought it was really a good place to put it just because I didn't have to move my thumb too much and it didn't interrupt the flow of my camera movement. So I'm about to enter an area to kill a whole bunch of enemies and that'll be the end of the video. Overall, I very much enjoyed Shadow Warrior with the Steam controller. I guess I like that I'm able to kill a whole bunch of enemies with a melee weapon and just go to town with it. I think the extra functions on the Steam controller add to Shadow Warrior's gameplay elements. I think the grips are one of the most helpful layouts you could add to Shadow Warrior. And utilizing the motion control, the touch menu, the dual trigger functions is just as good. Plus, you can customize the game however you need to, since the game does permit simultaneous keyboard and gamepad setup.
I am unstoppable!
So that's all from me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.